My name is Michael Amar Calfee. My middle name goes back to the second president of the Republic of Texas. I am a fourth generation native Texan, and my name was handed down to me from several members of my family. My grandmother was the latest before me to have the name. I am not a historian with letters after my name. I am just someone who is curious about the history of Texas you don't often hear about. I'm not trying to tell you everything there is to know about a place or an event. I'm just hoping you will get a taste and then yearn to visit these places yourself to learn more.
Okay, today we're going to talk about something really kind of bizarre, and I'm going to have to read it. Back in 1959, a Arkansas history teacher would like to make up songs about points in history and sing them. And he wrote a song that his name was Jimmy Driftwood. What a cool name. And a guy by the name of Johnny Horton later that year recorded this song, and it became a huge hit in the 1960s. For a long time, especially it kind of went with the kind of 1960s British rock and roll thing, but it really wasn't. And of course that song was the Battle of New Orleans, and if it weren't for that song, I wouldn't know anything about the War of 1812 or the Battle of New Orleans. That's the first time I ever heard of it in my life, was when I heard, well, in 1815 we took a little trip. Yeah, and it was huge. It was like, it was voted, well, it was in the top 10 songs on Billboard for the 1960s. Can you believe that? So we all know about the Battle of New Orleans thanks to this song. And through that, we also know about Jean Lafitte, this great buccaneer, privateer, pirate from New Orleans. And New Orleans likes to celebrate him on Bourbon Street. They have where he and his brother had their black shop, and where they sold goods on the black market and all this type of stuff. But you got to understand about a few things about Jean Lafitte. He was an incredible businessman. He wasn't like in the movies. You got this one guy on one ship with a black flag going out attacking, innocent other vessels, things like that. No, he had a whole fleet of ships. He had sometimes often more than 100 people in his employ. He had captains running ships for him. He didn't go out in the ship. He had people that did that for him, and they would get this stuff. Sometimes coins, sometimes stuff worth a lot of money, but they would get everything from ladies' hats to things that were being shipped over from Europe that people over here wanted. All kinds of things, special fabric and things like that people wanted, furniture, and some of that stuff could be sold for a pretty penny on the black market. So not only was he capturing all kinds of stuff, but then he had to have a network of people to sell this stuff, to make money off of it. He had all these network of people he could fence it to, or he just had his own businesses on the side where he sold it. Incredible businessman. Well, the United States government, which was in New Orleans, Louisiana then, we were at war, the War of 1812, which honestly Americans don't know very much about, and that's fine with me. Now the Canadians think it was their greatest moment in history. It was the war where they defeated, and I'm not exaggerating this, if you go up to Canada you'll see references to this kind of thing all the time, where they defeated American imperialism when the United States tried to take Canada. And their greatest hero is Benedict Arnold. I'm not kidding, I'm not exaggerating. You go to these little towns, go to North Bay, Ontario, there's a statue of Benedict Arnold right there at the courthouse square, because he's their greatest war hero. We don't get that either. But here's the Battle of New Orleans. Andrew Jackson has showed up with naval forces and soldiers and Marines and stuff to try to defend New Orleans against the British. The fact that the war was already over and they didn't know about it yet, well, that's just a footnote. But the war had already been over. Britain had already sued for peace, and the United States and Britain had already come to terms, and it was over. But these people that were going to fight didn't know it. And meanwhile, Jean Lafitte had been arrested and put on this, and the island he was operating out of kind of became his prison. And but he had a plan, because remember, he was pretty smart. So he wrote a letter to Andrew Jackson and said, you know what, I am ready to be a upstanding citizen and defend my country and be a good guy for a change. If you'll give me a pardon, I will commit all my my men to fighting with you against the British. Well, Andrew Jackson said, well, I really don't have that power. It's the local authorities who have captured and imprisoned you. I really don't have that kind of authority to just release you, you know, after he got that letter. Well, that night, Jean Lafitte escaped captivity with all his men and showed up to fight for Andrew Jackson and did a good job. Andrew Jackson's officers in the Navy, or on these kind of Navy, these sailing vessels and things like that, commented on how Jean Lafitte's men were so much better at boarding other ships than his men were. Well, duh. But anyway, Jean Lafitte fought for the Battle of New Orleans. And then what happened? What happened to Jean Lafitte in 1815 after the Battle of New Orleans? Well, short answer, he moved to Texas, of course. He moved to Galveston, and he set up shop here on Galveston Island, which he called Campeche. Now, there was already a Mexican state called, or Mexican island, whatever, called Campeche, but he called it that anyway. It was kind of common in those days for people to name things after other places and things like that. That happened kind of often. But I think he was smarter than that. I think he intentionally let the word out that he was setting up shop in Campeche just to confuse the authorities. Within a year, here on Galveston Island, okay, which was part of Mexico at that time, which he called Campeche, he had over 100 men working for him again. And they were boarding vessels and being pirates. Now, he didn't consider himself a pirate. He considered himself a privateer. Now, privateers are people who have received a letter of marque or a commission from some government, and they're basically mercenaries, and they're considered legitimate soldiers, I guess you could say. They have the right to board the vessels of the enemy of the people who give them this commission, and take their stuff and take it as tribute, you know, and you know, wage war against these other people with an authority type of situation. Well, there's no record of Jean Lafitte ever really receiving any authority, you know, to be a privateer from any nation. What he did do, though, that we pretty much sure of, he wrote up these letters of marque and for fictitious countries, and then he would present them to either his captains, so that they think they would be doing stuff with some type of immunity, or he would present them to this vessel that he was boarding and taking their stuff. He said, well, we're boarding this in the name of King blah blah blah, or something like that. And so that ship's problem would be with King blah blah blah, and not him, you know. And but he made these up. He made them up. Okay. Within a year of 1815, he had 100 people here on Galveston Island working for him. 5 years later, he had over 1,000 people working for him here. Okay. During that time, yes, he had all these ships. Had lots of ships going out and doing all this kind of stuff, pretending to be, privateers. And he also, this was right in the middle of Mexico's independence from Spain, which lasted from about 1810 to 1825, something like that, 1821. So right in the middle of that, he's also being a spy for Spain. Okay. Well, of course, Mexico gets their independence and all that kind of thing. Well, he sets up shop here, and then one day, one of his captains mistakenly, supposedly, actually attacks and boards an American vessel. But we can't have that. In the United States, being the United States, of course, we don't think twice about going over to somebody else's country and enforcing our laws. So they sent one of the best vessels they had in the Navy, the USS Enterprise. No joke. That was the name of it. And came to Campeche and sent word out that you better not be there when we get here. And so he was kind of given the opportunity to leave with riches, all kinds of stuff. Well, he left Galveston, and there's two stories about what happened to him after that. One is he accidentally attacked a group of boats that were privateers, and they were much better armed, and they were much better at doing it than he was, and he was mortally wounded, and he was buried at sea in the Gulf of the Bay of Honduras. Okay, that's one story. The other story is he faked his death, and he moved up to the Carolinas up there, and lived to be 94 years old, and was a member of the Masonic Lodge up there, and even had a pirate sword commissioned for the lodge, and has inscribed on it J.N. Lafitte, capital J, which is how he signed his name. So I'm kind of halfway believing that. And he's buried in a cemetery up there, in a corner of the Masonic cemetery called Pirate's Corner. Okay, but why am I going to all this trouble to tell you all about this while I'm standing here on Galveston Island? Let me show you. Okay, I said earlier, after 1815, Jean Lafitte settled in Galveston. And this is true, but it was probably around 1817 or so, or late 1816, that he actually really started settling here and started prospering and building his home. He built this he was very successful. He built this grand home that was painted red, and it was known as La Maison Rouge, of course. And everybody said, oh, you got to go to the red house and talk to, John. He had a lavish mansion and lived a very lavish life with all kinds of servants and people taking care of him. He lived like a king. He spent a lot of his time still aboard his ship, the Pride was the name of it. But he built this grand mansion on the bay side of Galveston Island, right here. Honest, part of this structure was, it goes back quite a ways, maybe we can get a shot there, but it was a 3-story mansion, but when the island was flooded in 1900, they came and they lifted up all the big fancy houses and then put dirt underneath them and set them back down. They raised the island up 17 feet. Well, some places, like old ruins, for example, they didn't do that. They just piled dirt around them. They're not going to pick up this old thing. Somebody's going to tear it down anyway. Well, some of the structure that you see here was actually structure that was built on top or with some of the ruins that Jean Lafitte had. When Jean Lafitte had to leave the island, when the Enterprise was coming, he burned, he had a big fort and this mansion. And he burned all of that and then left, okay? But, so some of this was actually built on the ruins of Jean Lafitte's house. Now, I can provide you with some drawings, a picture, perhaps, of what his house looked like, because it was so lavish, people, drew pictures of it and stuff like that. And I'll tell you what, I'll go ahead and I'll post that right here. Hopefully it's there. And if you look at it closely, you can see some similarities between it and this house, like the arched windows. Now, remember, half of this house is buried, Okay, and so you see these arch windows and things of that nature. The staircase might have been lifted up, dirt put underneath it, or moved over, or whatever. I don't know. There is some dispute over what is original to Les Maisons Rouge. The picture's still there, and what is new later in the 19th century. But regardless, we know this is the spot where Jean Lafitte lived on Galveston Island, which he called Campeche. Pretty cool, huh?
Like that.
Watching one of my videos. Well, I really do appreciate it. Now, you know, videos like this, we live or die based on that like button. So please, please, please take the time and put